Hey, this has been weighing on me for a while, and I think it's time to get it off my chest. The whole situation with my family was beyond frustrating, but I never expected it would end up like this. I'm still kind of in shock, honestly. So sit back, because this is going to be one of those you won't believe it stories. First, a little bit about me. My name's Oliver, and I'm the older sibling. Growing up, I always felt like the one who had to do the heavy lifting in our family, while my younger brother, Liam, got away with everything. I'm 26 now, working a regular 9 to 5 job, and I'm still figuring things out, but I've always been the reliable one. I don't mind it, honestly. I was taught that hard work pays off, even if it's a slow burn. Liam, on the other hand, is 22, and let's just say he's never been a fan of hard work. If there's one thing Liam knows how to do, it's how to manipulate situations in his favor, and somehow, he's always managed to get everything handed to him on a silver platter. Whether it's new gadgets, designer clothes, or trips, our parents were always quick to give him what he wanted. Meanwhile, I was left to do the boring stuff, things like taking care of the house, running errands, and doing all the work that they didn't feel like dealing with. Our parents, dad and mom, were strict when it came to me. They always told me I had to earn my place, and that life wasn't going to be easy. It was their favorite line, honestly. I never really understood why they treated me differently than Liam. They'd always say they wanted me to be responsible and level-headed. Which, fine, I get that. But it was always on their terms. If they needed something done, it was me they'd turn to. If there was a big decision to be made, I had to take the lead. But when it came to Liam, he was treated like some kind of prince. No matter what he did, it was always like he could do no wrong. This dynamic was something I learned to deal with over the years. Sure, I didn't get all the flashy things, but I had something they didn't: independence. I had a job at 16. I worked my way through school, and I've always managed to keep things together. But Liam? He never lifted a finger. It drove me crazy, seeing how they'd bend over backward for him. But things really started to hit the fan around his graduation. It was a big deal for our parents. They made it out to be some kind of grand achievement. Liam had barely passed his classes. I mean, he scraped by. He never put in the effort, but they were so proud of him. And what did I get? Well, you'll find out. The day of the graduation celebration, we had a small family gathering. Nothing extravagant, but they sure made it sound like the world was watching. They had a cake with his name on it, balloons everywhere, and all sorts of decorations. It was as if this was the most important day of the year, and for them, I guess it was. I don't want to sound bitter, but it's hard not to when you've been in my position. It was like they were so focused on Liam that they didn't even consider the things I'd done. I kept things running smoothly around the house. I helped pay bills when Dad's job didn't cover everything. I dealt with the grocery shopping, the laundry, and all the other stuff that comes with keeping a household together. And then came the presents. Liam had gotten his shiny new car, a present our parents had barely been able to afford. In fact, I later found out they had taken out a loan to cover the cost. I wasn't angry about the car itself, but the fact that they couldn't afford it, yet they still went ahead and bought it for him. Well, that part stung, especially when they barely acknowledged the sacrifices I'd made. Then, it was my turn. I tried to push the feelings aside. I didn't want to be that guy, the one who complains just because he doesn't get a shiny gift. But what I got was, to put it lightly, a slap in the face. I sat down on the couch, waiting for my turn, trying to hide the anxiety bubbling up inside me. It was like I already knew what was coming. Mom smiled at me, but it wasn't the warm, loving smile I was used to. It felt different. Almost condescending in a way. "Oliver," she said, her voice soft, almost too sweet. "We know you're so responsible, and we just wanted to make sure you have what you need for your future. We thought this would be practical." I tried to smile back, trying to mask the frustration building inside me. I didn't want to seem ungrateful, but I was already bracing myself for disappointment. I had to keep it together. Dad handed me a small box. It felt light, and when I opened it, I wasn't prepared for what I saw. Inside the box was a stack of household cleaning supplies, paper towels, sponges, dish soap, and the like. My heart sank. There were no words. No words from me, at least. I stared at the contents for a few seconds, my mind trying to process it. "Mom." "Dad," I started, but my voice faltered. "What is this?" Dad chuckled, slapping his knee. "Well, Oliver, now you can be even more useful around the house. You've always been so responsible, and this is just another way to show how much you contribute." I blinked, trying to understand. Was this a joke? Liam, sitting next to me, was grinning ear to ear. He looked at me with this smug, almost mocking expression. Yeah, Ollie, now you can keep things nice and clean. You always seem to be the one doing the chores anyway. My stomach churned. I knew this was going to be bad, but I didn't expect it to sting this much. They were giving my brother a brand new car, and me cleaning supplies? I swallowed hard, but my throat felt tight, like I was choking on something I couldn't quite name. I stood up, not wanting to sit there any longer, not wanting to look at the pile of cleaning supplies in front of me. I'm going to head out for a bit, I said, my voice cold. I need some air. Without waiting for a response, I grabbed my jacket, packed a bag, and left the house. I didn't know what I was hoping for, but I didn't want to be there anymore. I could hear my parents calling after me, but I didn't look back. I don't know how long I walked that night, but it felt like hours. I just kept putting one foot in front of the other, not really caring where I was going. It wasn't until I reached a small bench near the park that I finally stopped to sit down, my mind racing. I should have been furious, and I was, but I was also tired. Tired of always being the responsible one, tired of being the one to do everything right, only to get ignored or dismissed. I took out my phone, scrolling through a few messages from friends, trying to distract myself from the mess that had just happened. I didn't even want to go back home, but where else could I go? The house was all I had, even though it felt more like a prison than a place of comfort. I finally decided to call a cab to take me to a friend's place, just to get some space. When I got there, I told my friend, Jake, everything that happened. Jake listened quietly, but I could see the frustration in his eyes. He knew what I'd been going through with my family. You don't deserve that, Oliver, Jake said. You've been busting your ass for years, and they just keep using you. You're not a damn maid. I let out a sigh, feeling the weight of the past few years hit me all over again. I don't know what to do anymore. I've given everything to them. And Liam? He doesn't appreciate anything. He's spoiled, and it's like they think he can do no wrong. Jake was quiet for a moment, and then he said something I hadn't really thought about. Why don't you leave? For real. Go get a job. Start over somewhere else. You don't need them, man. You've got this. It hit me like a ton of bricks. He was right. I didn't have to stick around. I didn't have to keep being their backup plan, the one they turned to when they needed help. It was hard to imagine leaving everything behind, but in that moment, it felt like it might be the only way to break free. I spent the night at Jake's, and when I woke up, I knew what I had to do. It wasn't just about the gift anymore. It was about my entire life, about the way my parents treated me compared to Liam. So, I packed a bag, grabbed what I needed, and went to my parents' house to let them know I was leaving. They weren't home at the time, which only made the whole situation feel even more like I was walking away from a chapter one could never go back to. When they got back, it didn't take long for them to realize something was off. I was halfway through the process of packing up my things when I heard their car pull into the driveway. My heart skipped a beat as the front door creaked open. Oliver. My mom's voice echoed down the hallway, sounding surprised. Where are you going? I walked into the living room, holding my bag. I'm leaving, Mom. What? Her voice faltered. Where are you going? You can't just leave like this. I kept my tone steady, but I could feel the tension building. I've been carrying this family for too long. It's time for me to go. You and Dad don't need me. Not really. You've always had Liam for everything else. The look on her face was one of disbelief, like she couldn't process what I was saying. Oliver, you know we depend on you. You've been so helpful, and now this. This is the thanks we get. I didn't let her guilt trip me this time. I've been helpful because you've never given me a choice. You've always expected me to clean up after everyone. Liam does whatever he wants, and you keep giving him everything. Well, I'm done. Dad stepped into the room, looking almost confused. What do you mean, you're done? You're going to leave the family? After everything we've done for you? You've done nothing for me, Dad, I replied, keeping my voice calm. Liam gets a car, and I get cleaning supplies. That's how much I mean to you. Mom's face twisted in something close to panic. You don't understand. We've been making sacrifices for your future. You're not seeing the bigger picture. I shook my head. No, Mom. I'm done seeing the bigger picture. You've never seen me. You've only seen what you can use me for. But I'm not doing this anymore. I turned to leave, but Liam stepped into the doorway, a smug expression plastered on his face. Wow, Ollie. Leaving already? Guess you can't handle the family spotlight, huh? I mean, I just got a brand new car for graduation. What do you have? A bag of cleaning supplies? He laughed, and I could feel my blood boiling. Shut up, Liam, I said through gritted teeth. You don't have a clue. Mom shot him a glare, but then turned back to me, her voice a bit more frantic. Where are you even going to go? You can't just leave us like this. I didn't answer her immediately. I simply walked out the door, leaving everything behind. It wasn't until I was in the cab, heading to a small apartment I'd rented that same morning, that I felt the weight of what I'd just done. For the first time in years, I felt free. The following year was a blur. I found a 9 to 5 job in sales just to keep things steady, but my real plan was always the side hustle. It took time, a lot of hard work, and plenty of late nights, but after a few months, I started seeing the results. I was making money online, not just a little, but enough to start thinking bigger. I was no longer dependent on my family, no longer living in the shadow of my brother. But as I started to succeed, that's when the call started. I had gone from living paycheck to paycheck, relying on my parents, to a self-sufficient adult with financial freedom. I wasn't a millionaire yet, but the sense of independence and control over my life was worth more than anything. It felt like a huge victory every time I checked my bank balance, seeing the numbers climb. But of course, as my success grew, so did the need for my family to reach out. It all started with a text from my mom. At first, it was casual. She was trying to sound like everything was normal. Hey, Oliver, how's the new place? I hope you're settling in well. Have you been able to keep busy with work? I could tell this was a thinly veiled attempt to see if I'd bite and talk about what I was doing. So, I responded, keeping it simple and vague. I'm doing well. Work's keeping me busy, but it's going good. That was it. A couple of days went by before I heard from her again. This time, it wasn't just a check-in. The tone was different. Oliver, your dad and I have been thinking. We're really proud of you. You've always worked hard, and we just wanted to tell you that we're here for you, no matter what. I could feel the tension in her words. It was almost like they were testing the waters, hoping to open the door for something more. I knew exactly what they wanted, but I kept my reply neutral. Thanks, Mom. I appreciate it. A week later, I got another message. This time, it wasn't from her, but from Liam. Hey, Ollie, hope you're doing all right. I know things are a bit tense between us, but I just wanted to check in. How's work going? I've been thinking about you. Liam thinking about me? That was new. He had never cared about anything except himself. I didn't want to be petty, but I also didn't want to pretend like everything was fine. So, I replied with the same vague answer I'd given Mom. Everything's good. Work's going well, and I'm staying busy. A couple of days later, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was my mom calling. I hesitated for a moment, then answered. Hello, Oliver. Honey, it's Mom, she said, sounding almost sweet. I hope you're doing well. Your dad and I were just talking. We were wondering if you could come by soon. We really miss you. You know, it's not the same without you here. My stomach dropped. It felt like a trap. They hadn't missed me before, at least not in the way they were claiming. It had been months since I left, and all of a sudden, they wanted to act like they cared. I could practically hear the desperation in her voice. I don't know, Mom, I said, trying to sound neutral but not giving in. I've got a lot going on here. Things are different. She was quiet for a second, and I could hear her breathing on the other end of the line. I waited for her response, knowing this was coming. Well, it's just that. With everything that's been going on, we've been struggling a little. You know, with your brother's car and all. And with the bills stacking up, it's been a lot for us lately. We could really use your help. There it was. I knew it. They had been in debt, taking out loans to buy Liam his car, and now they were struggling to keep up. They hadn't thought of how they would manage long term, and suddenly, they were remembering I existed. But it wasn't because they were concerned about me. It was because they needed something. My heart tightened. I don't know what you expect from me, Mom. I'm not coming back. I've built my life here. I heard her voice falter. We know you're doing well, Oliver. We just thought you could help us out a little. That's all. Just to get back on our feet. I didn't respond right away. I was processing what she was saying, how easily they expected me to just drop everything, return to the house, and fix their mess. Listen, Mom, I'm not coming back. You and Dad have made your choices. You decided to put everything into Liam. You can't just come to me when things get hard. You can't expect me to fix it. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Then, finally, my mom spoke, her voice almost pleading. Oliver, please. We've made mistakes, but we're trying. We really need you. I wasn't sure what I felt anymore. Anger? Sympathy? Resentment? A mix of all of those. I had worked so hard to get away from that place, and now they were trying to manipulate me into coming back. to be their backup once again. I can't help you, I said, feeling my resolve solidify. I've worked too hard for this. I'm not going to put myself back in that situation. That was the first of many calls. They came more frequently over the next few weeks, each time more desperate. Mom and Dad, each with their own version of pleading, reminding me how much they needed me, how much they'd sacrificed for me. They even mentioned Liam, talking about how his grades were slipping now that he had the car and how he couldn't handle the pressure of adult life. But every time I refused, they pushed harder until the calls stopped coming. The silence was almost worse than the constant begging. I knew they were upset. I knew they were angry, but that didn't stop me from living my life. Then, one day, I got a message from Liam. This time, it was different. It wasn't just about checking in or saying he missed me. It was a cry for help. Oliver, I need you to help me. Things are getting out of hand. Dad's been really upset lately, and Mom, she doesn't know what to do. We're in serious trouble. I didn't respond right away. I wasn't sure if I should even reply. What did he want from me? What was he trying to pull? Finally, after a few minutes, I decided to send a short reply. What do you want from me, Liam? His response came quickly, and the urgency in his words was clear. I'm serious, Ollie. We're in debt. We can't handle the car payments. I don't know who else to turn to. I could feel my heart sink. This wasn't just about them anymore. This was about a family falling apart, and Liam, the one who'd been handed everything on a silver platter, was finally realizing how bad things had gotten. I sat there for a moment, staring at the message on my phone, my fingers twitching with frustration. Then, I typed out a reply. Liam, you don't get it, do you? This isn't my problem. The words were harsh, but I felt like I needed to say it. It wasn't just about money or material things anymore. It was about principles. I wasn't going to be their fallback, their savior. They'd put me in a position where I was the one who had to sacrifice everything. I wasn't going to let them do it again. I stared at the screen for a few more seconds before I added more. You and Dad put yourselves in this mess. I told you guys when I left, I was done. I'm not coming back to fix things for you. Don't ask me to. I stared at the message, feeling a strange sense of relief. I had to stand my ground. There was no way I was going to let them guilt trip me into coming back. Just as I hit send, my phone rang. It was from my mom. The last thing I wanted to do was talk to her right now, but the call kept ringing, and it seemed like I was going to have to face it. I picked up with a deep sigh. Hello, Oliver, she started, and I could already hear the crack in her voice. She was trying to keep her composure, but the desperation was obvious. I don't know what to do. You need to come back. Your dad, he's not handling things well. He's been so upset, Ollie. I'm just worried about him. And Liam, well, he's not doing well at all. His grades are slipping. He doesn't know how to manage everything. It's just getting worse. I clenched my jaw, my patience wearing thin. Mom, I don't care about their problems. I have my own life now. I told you I wouldn't come back. You chose to spoil Liam and ignore me for years. Now, when things are hard, you want me to drop everything and fix it. No. There was silence on the other end of the phone. I could tell she was hurt by my words, but I wasn't about to apologize. Not this time. Mom, you need to figure this out on your own, I continued, my voice growing more firm. I'm not responsible for your financial mistakes. I'm not your backup. Her voice trembled. I'm not asking you to fix everything, Oliver. We just thought maybe you could help us out. Just a little. It's hard, and we don't know who else to turn to. I could feel my temper rising. You thought you could just ignore me when I needed help, and now that you're struggling, you think I owe you? What happened to your perfect family that didn't need me? The one where everything was supposed to be fine as long as Liam had everything handed to him. Her voice cracked. It's not like that, Ollie. We've made mistakes, but we're trying to do better now. Please, just come home. I felt a bitter laugh rise in my throat. I'm not coming back, and I'm certainly not going to keep bailing you out. You can't just call me when it's convenient for you. You made your choices. Oliver, please, she started, but I interrupted. No, I've heard this all before. I'm not your solution. You want to fix things? Start with Liam. He's the one who's got the luxury car, the one who's never worked a day in his life. You want to know what adulting looks like? Stop using me as your crutch and figure it out yourself. I could hear her sobbing now, the tears coming through in her words. You don't understand, Ollie. You don't understand how hard it's been. Please. I felt a pang of guilt in my chest, but I pushed it away. I couldn't let myself fall back into their trap. I understand perfectly, I said, my voice hardening. But I'm not going to give in. I'm not going to put my life on hold to fix yours. You need to face the consequences of your choices. I hung up before she could say anything else, letting out a long breath. My hands were shaking, not from fear, but from the frustration that had been building up over the last few months. They had always seen me as someone who could be manipulated, someone who could be pushed into action whenever they needed me. But not anymore. I knew it wouldn't be the end of it. I knew they'd try again. My mom had always been persistent when she needed something, and my dad was the type to sulk and try to guilt-trip me. But I wasn't going to give in. I had worked too hard to get to where I was, and I wasn't going to let them drag me back into that life. About a week later, as I was getting ready to leave work, I saw a notification pop up on my phone. It was from my dad. We've been talking, and we've made some changes. We're sorry for how things have been. Your mom and I, we just want to help you. We miss you, and we need you. Please, Oliver, come home. Let's fix things. We'll work together. I stared at the message, my heart hammering in my chest. I wasn't sure what to feel. A part of me wanted to be angry, but the other part of me wondered if they truly meant it. I didn't respond right away. Instead, I sat there in my apartment, replaying everything in my mind, the way they had treated me, how they had never shown a fraction of this supposed love when I needed it. Now, after everything, they were suddenly begging for my help? I wasn't buying it. A few days passed, and I didn't hear from them again. I started to think they might have finally given up. Maybe they had learned their lesson. Maybe they realized that they could no longer rely on me, that I wasn't their emotional bank account, their last resort. Then, another message came, but this time, it wasn't from my mom or dad. It was from Liam. You're really going to leave us hanging like this? What's the point of family if you don't help when we need it? You've been selfish. We're struggling, and you're just going to let us drown? I thought you were better than this. There it was again, the manipulation, the guilt, the same old tactics. I wasn't surprised that it was Liam this time. He had always been the one to play the victim when things didn't go his way, the one who thought the world should revolve around him. But this time, I wasn't going to let it work. I sat down, typing out my response slowly, making sure every word hit the mark. You don't get it, Liam. I'm not your backup, and I'm not your savior. You're the one who always gets everything handed to you, and now that things aren't perfect, you want to blame me for your problems. I don't owe you anything. You're grown, just like I am. It's time you learn to stand on your own 2 feet. You've had your life handed to you on a silver platter, and now you want me to come back and fix everything? That's not how this works. Don't ever contact me again unless you're ready to be honest about what you've done. I hit send, my finger trembling slightly. I'd never been more sure of a decision in my life. But that wasn't the end of it. A few weeks later, I got a call from an unfamiliar number. I almost didn't pick it up, but something told me I had to. When I answered, it was my dad on the other end. Oliver, we know we messed up, he said, his voice more fragile than I'd ever heard it. Your mom and I, we've been trying to fix things. And we're sorry. We were wrong. We don't want you to think we only care about what you can do for us. We want our family back. We want you back. The words hit me harder than I expected. There was a part of me that wanted to believe them, to think that maybe, just maybe, they were truly sorry. But the logical part of my mind reminded me of everything they had done to me, how they had taken me for granted, used me, manipulated me into being the one to clean up their messes. I had been their backup plan for far too long, and I was done. I'm not coming back, Dad, I said, my voice steady. Not now, not ever. You've had your chance, and you've used it all up. You can't just expect me to forget everything just because you're sorry now. You made your choices. I'm making mine. There was a long silence on the other end, and I could hear the sound of him breathing heavily. I understand, he finally said, his voice defeated. But please, just know we're here if you ever change your mind. I hung up the phone and sat there in the quiet of my apartment, feeling a strange sense of relief. For the first time in my life, I felt like I was truly free. It's been a year now since that last conversation. My parents have tried to contact me a few times, but I've stayed firm. I'm not going to let them back into my life, and I'm not going to feel guilty about it. Over the past year, I've been building something for myself, something that will ensure I never have to rely on anyone again. My income is growing steadily, and in a few more months, I'll be at the point where I can truly call myself financially independent. And, to be honest, a part of me knows that when they find out I've gotten to that point, they'll come knocking again. But this time, I won't be there. So, Reddit, what do you think? Am I wrong for refusing to help them? I'm honestly torn between feeling like I did the right thing and feeling guilty about leaving them behind. It's hard because they're family, but after everything, I just don't know if I can forgive them. Let me know your thoughts. Hey, this is my first time posting, and I'm not sure if I'll even get any replies, but I need to get this off my chest. This all happened a few years ago, but I still can't shake the feeling of betrayal. Maybe you all can help me understand if I was in the wrong, but I honestly think I'm owed a little justice for what went down. So, here's the setup. My name is Jess, and I come from a pretty normal family. Mom, dad, and my younger brother, Alex. Like most families, we had our share of squabbles over the years, but nothing too serious. That is, until the whole issue with our late grandfather's house came up. Grandpa passed away when I was in my early 20s, and he left behind this small, but charming house. It wasn't anything special, certainly not a mansion, but it was cozy, had a good amount of space, and it felt like it could be home. The only problem was, no one was living there. Grandpa had been living alone in the house for years, and now that he was gone, it just sat there, empty and waiting for someone to take it. I didn't think much about it at first. It was just a house, right? But then, out of nowhere, Alex, my younger brother, announced he was moving into Grandpa's place. No biggie, I thought. He could use the space, and I wasn't exactly in a position to need it at the time. At that point, I was living with some friends, just trying to get by after a rough breakup. But as time passed, I realized I could really use a place of my own, somewhere quiet to regroup, get a little peace and space. So, I did what anyone would do. I asked my parents if I could stay at Grandpa's house for a while. I wasn't asking for a permanent spot, just a temporary place while I got my life back on track. I was already feeling a little awkward about it, because Alex had just moved in. But it's not like I was asking for his room. I'd be fine with the extra room or even the guest bedroom. I figured it wouldn't hurt to ask, right? I'll never forget the moment I brought it up to my parents. It was a Sunday afternoon, and we were all sitting in the living room. I was feeling a bit nervous because I knew Alex was already settled in there, but I figured my parents would see it as a reasonable request. Hey, Mom, Dad, I started, my voice a little tentative. I've been thinking, do you think I could stay at Grandpa's house for a little while? I could really use a place to crash until I get back on my feet. I'll help with anything, like taking care of the place or doing the lawn work. There was a pause. My mom looked at me for a second, but instead of the usual warmth in her expression, there was this almost flatness. It was hard to put my finger on at first, but something was off. My dad was sitting there too, half paying attention, his eyes glued to his phone as always. He didn't even look up when I spoke. Mom sighed, then looked at Dad, like she was waiting for him to say something. When he didn't, she finally spoke. No, Jess, that's not going to work. I froze for a second. What do you mean? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. It's Alex's place now, she said, almost dismissively. He's the one who's staying there. You need to figure something else out. I could feel my chest tighten. It was one thing to hear that from my brother, but coming from my mom? And Dad just sat there, staring at his phone, acting like I wasn't even talking. I didn't know what to say. My mouth went dry, and I tried to keep my cool. I don't need to stay forever, just for a little while. I'd be really careful, I promise. It's just temporary while I get back on track. My mom's face didn't soften. She crossed her arms, leaning back in her chair. No, Jess, it's not happening. But why? What's the big deal? I pressed, genuinely confused. This was family, right? I thought we were supposed to help each other out. My dad finally looked up from his phone. It's Alex's house now. You should be more independent. I blinked, feeling the sting of his words. It wasn't like I wasn't trying to be independent. I just needed a little help, a little space to breathe. But no, this was apparently where the line was drawn. But, you let Alex stay there. Why not me? I asked, my voice a little sharper than I meant. My mom's gaze hardened, like I'd said something I shouldn't have. Alex needs it, Jess. He's been struggling with things, and we've already told you, you need to handle your own stuff. Don't ask for special treatment. The words felt like a slap in the face. Alex is struggling? I repeated, my voice shaking now. What about me? I've been struggling too. But apparently, I don't matter enough for a little help. The room went silent for a few moments, and I could feel the tension in the air. My parents didn't seem to care about the situation. They just sat there, as if I was being unreasonable. And Alex? Well, of course, when I mentioned it to him later, he laughed. You really think I'm going to let you move in here? He asked, snickering. No way, Jess. It's my place now. Figure it out. So, after that, I tried to put it out of my mind. It wasn't easy, but I had no choice. I couldn't just sit around begging for a place to stay. I had to make things work. So I moved into a tiny studio apartment that I could barely afford. It was cramped, but it was mine, and I didn't have to rely on anyone. But as much as I hated the situation, the bitterness stayed with me. Every time I saw my parents or Alex, I couldn't shake the feeling that they had abandoned me. I was the one who needed a hand up, not Alex, who had been living rent-free in a house he didn't even care about, acting like it was his personal palace. But they all kept defending him. He's in a rough spot, my mom would say whenever I brought it up. You'll figure it out, Jess. And Alex? Well, he wasn't shy about rubbing it in. He'd send me texts every now and then, bragging about how his life was so much easier with the house. He'd even throw in a comment here or there about how nice it was not to have to pay rent. It was like he knew how much it bothered me and he loved it. He was playing some twisted game, and I was the punchline. Things dragged on like that for months. I got a second job, started hustling to cover rent, and tried to keep my head down. But it was hard not to feel like my parents had picked a side. I'd overhear them talking about Alex's bright future and how he was really getting his act together. Meanwhile, they'd give me these forced pep talks, telling me that I just needed to work harder. I guess they thought I'd get over it, but I didn't. I was tired of being the one they only remembered when they needed something. One evening, about a year after the whole "no, you can't stay at Grandpa's house" incident, I was out grabbing dinner when I got a call from my mom. I didn't even want to pick it up, but I did. "Jess, honey, we need to talk," she said, her voice oddly serious. I felt a little jolt of anxiety. My parents had never called me this late unless something was up. "What's going on?" I asked, trying to sound calm. "Well, we've been talking, and we have a situation," she said slowly, dragging out every word. "We're in a bit of a financial bind, and we could really use your help. It's important." I sat up straighter. This sounded off. They'd never asked me for help before. Not like this. "Okay, what kind of help are we talking about?" I asked, already dreading the answer. "Your dad and I need to borrow some money," she said, not even bothering to sugarcoat it. "We've had some unexpected expenses come up, and we were hoping you could loan us a couple thousand, just until we can get things sorted." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My mouth went dry. Here I was, struggling to make rent, still getting by on a shoestring budget, and they wanted me to give them money? The same people who had turned me away when I needed them? I was quiet for a moment, not sure what to say. "You want me to give you money?" I repeated, feeling the heat rise in my chest. "After everything? After you told me to figure it out when I needed help? Now you want to borrow from me?" There was an awkward silence on the other end of the line before my mom spoke again. "Look, Jess, we're not asking for much, and we're family. We've helped you before, and now it's your turn to help us." The audacity. She really thought I'd just roll over and help them after everything that happened? I could feel my heart pounding in my ears. I wanted to tell her no. I wanted to hang up the phone and let them deal with their own mess, just like they had told me to do when I was struggling. But there was something inside me that snapped. Maybe it was the anger, or maybe it was just the sheer injustice of the situation. "Actually," I said, my voice calm but sharp, "I think I've helped enough already." "What are you talking about?" she asked, confused. "I've been helping myself for the past year," I said, feeling a little more confident now. "You made it clear that I wasn't worth helping. You told me to figure it out, so that's what I did. I didn't get a place to crash. I didn't get a handout. And now, you want me to bail you out." My mom's tone shifted from pleading to defensive. "Jess, this is different. We're family. You should understand that." "I do understand," I said, a bit of a bitter chuckle slipping out. "I understand that when it was my turn, I was supposed to figure it out on my own. And now that it's your turn, you're coming to me. Well, I'm going to do the same thing you did. Figure it out." I could hear her sputtering, but I wasn't done yet. "And as for the money, I think I'll be keeping it for myself, just in case I ever need to figure something out again." The silence on the other end was almost deafening. I could almost picture her speechless, not knowing what to say to that. And then, just before I hung up, I added one final line. "Maybe you should have helped me when you had the chance." The silence lingered for what felt like an eternity before my mom finally spoke again, but this time, her voice had lost the pleading tone. It was colder, sharper. "Well, fine. If you don't want to help, then we'll just have to figure it out ourselves." I heard the sound of her taking a breath, probably trying to compose herself. "But don't think this is the last time we're going to ask. You're still family, Jess." I wasn't sure if I was supposed to feel guilty, but honestly, all I felt was a quiet sense of relief. I had finally stood up for myself. "Yeah, well, good luck." I said before I ended the call, my hand shaking slightly as I put the phone down. That night, I didn't sleep much. It wasn't because I felt bad. I didn't. It was because I felt powerful. I had said no. I had taken control of the situation. For once, I wasn't the one on the receiving end of their expectations. For once, I made the rules. The next few days were tense, though. My mom and dad didn't call or text me, which felt weird. I was used to their constant check-ins or their passive-aggressive guilt trips. But now, nothing. It was like I had vanished from their radar, and it was exactly what I needed. I didn't want to deal with their drama anymore. Alex, on the other hand, wasn't as silent. He texted me the day after that conversation. "Mom and Dad said you're being stubborn," he wrote. "I don't get it. Why can't you just help them out like they helped you?" I stared at the text for a while before responding, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. Help them out? Like how? By letting them control me again? I don't think so. He replied almost immediately. "Wow, Jess. I'm just saying. They've been there for you. You should be there for them now." I wanted to scream, to tell him exactly what I thought of him and his precious little house, but I held back. Instead, I just typed out something simple. Maybe if they'd been there for me when I needed it, I'd be more inclined to help. There was a pause before he answered again. "You're being childish." And that was it. It didn't matter what he said, because I knew one thing. I wasn't going to fall for their manipulation anymore. It had taken me a while to realize it, but I was done. I was done being the one to bend over backward while they walked all over me. But the real twist? The real reason they were going to regret this? They weren't done with me yet. Oh, no. They still needed something. Something big. And when they came crawling back, I would be ready. A couple of weeks went by, and I settled into my routine. Work, gym, Netflix, sleep. It wasn't glamorous, but I felt more at peace than I had in months. The guilt they tried to make me feel had slowly faded away, replaced with a quiet satisfaction. I had taken control. I had done what was right for me. But just when I thought I was safe from their drama, the storm hit. One afternoon, as I was finishing up a shift at the cafe, I saw a notification pop up on my phone. It was a message from my dad. I hadn't heard from him directly in ages. It read, "We need to talk. Urgently." I felt a knot in my stomach, the familiar anxiety creeping back in. I stared at the message, trying to figure out what was going on. It had been so quiet for so long, I was beginning to think they'd just given up on me. I was about to reply when another message came through, this one from Alex. "It's about Grandpa's house," he wrote. "Dad's asking for your help." I stared at the message for a long time. Help with Grandpa's house? What the hell did that even mean? I could already feel my blood pressure rising. They couldn't possibly be serious. I decided to call my dad. It rang a few times before he picked up. "Jess," he said, his voice strained. "We need to talk about something important." "Dad, what's going on?" I asked, keeping my voice steady, though I could feel my heart thudding in my chest. "Look, it's a long story, but we need you to come by the house. There's something you need to know. Something urgent about the property." I felt a sudden chill. "What do you mean, urgent?" "We can't explain it all over the phone. You need to come in person." "Why now? Why are you asking me for help again, after everything?" I asked, my frustration creeping in. "Please, Jess," he said, the desperation clear in his voice. "Just come over. This is really important." I wanted to say no. I wanted to hang up the phone and tell them to figure it out themselves. But then I remembered the satisfaction of standing my ground before. Maybe, just maybe, this was the final test. And I was going to pass it with flying colors. I didn't reply right away. Instead, I just texted back, "I'll be there in an hour." I pulled up to my parents' house, gripping the steering wheel tighter than I needed to. I knew something was off. The whole urgent thing didn't sit right with me. If it were really that important, they would have told me over the phone. But I was curious. Curious to see just how far they would go to manipulate me this time. As I stepped out of my car, I took a deep breath, bracing myself for whatever nonsense they were about to throw at me. I rang the doorbell, and after a few moments, my mom opened the door with a wide, overly enthusiastic smile. "Oh, Jess, you actually came," she said, as if we hadn't just spent the last few months at odds. I narrowed my eyes. "Yeah, you said it was urgent." She waved her hand dismissively. Come in, come in. We'll explain inside." I hesitated before stepping into the house. It smelled the same as always, vanilla candles and my dad's old cologne lingering in the air. It should have felt comforting, but instead, it made me uneasy, like I was stepping into a trap. I followed my mom into the living room, where my dad and Alex were already waiting. My dad was seated in his old recliner, arms crossed, looking annoyed. Alex sat on the couch, scrolling through his phone like he couldn't care less that I was there. I took a seat across from them. "All right," I said, cutting straight to the point. "What's so urgent?" My dad cleared his throat. "Well, first, we just wanted to see you, sweetheart. It's been too long." I let out a dry laugh. "Right. Because you were so desperate to see me that you couldn't just say that on the phone." My mom shot my dad a look, and he sighed. "Fine. We wanted to talk to you about Grandpa's house." I leaned back in my chair, arms crossed. "What about it?" My mom gave me that saccharine smile she always used when she was about to ask for something unreasonable. "Well, we've been talking, and we realized that, maybe, we were a little unfair to you before." I blinked. "A little." She ignored my sarcasm and continued. "The thing is, Alex has been having a tough time keeping up with things at the house. There are property taxes, maintenance, and, well, he's just got so much on his plate. We thought that maybe you could step in and help." I stared at her, waiting for the punchline. "Help?" "Yes," my dad chimed in. "We were thinking you could start pitching in financially, just to make sure everything is taken care of." I felt my jaw tighten. "Let me get this straight. You told me I couldn't live there when I needed a place to stay, but now you want me to pay for it? For Alex's house?" My brother finally looked up from his phone, rolling his eyes. "It's not just for me, Jess. It's for the family." I let out a bitter laugh. "Oh, now it's a family thing? That's funny, because when I needed help, I was told to figure it out." My mom sighed dramatically, like I was being the unreasonable one. "Jess, don't be like this. We made decisions that we thought were best at the time. But now, we really do need your help." I shook my head, feeling my temper rise. "No, you don't need my help. You need a scapegoat. You need someone to clean up the mess you made when you handed Grandpa's house to Alex without thinking it through." My dad leaned forward, his expression hardening. "Don't talk like that. This is about doing what's right for the family." I stood up, my heart pounding. "You mean doing what's right for Alex? Because let's be real, that's all this has ever been about." Alex scoffed. "Oh, come on, Jess. Stop playing the victim. You act like we threw you out on the street." I turned to him, my voice cold. "You did. Maybe not literally, but you sure as hell didn't care when I was struggling. You told me to figure it out. So guess what? Now it's your turn." My mom gasped. "Jess, that is not how family treats each other." I laughed. Actually laughed. "That's rich coming from you. Because when I needed my family, where were you?" "Oh, right. Too busy handing out free houses to my golden child brother." My dad's face was turning red. "That's enough." I grabbed my bag. "No, it's not. Because I'm done. I'm done playing this game where you guilt-trip me into being your backup plan. You made your choice when you told me I wasn't welcome. Well, now I'm making mine." My mom looked genuinely panicked now. "Jess, wait." I shook my head. "No, you don't get to control me anymore. You don't get to cherry pick when I'm part of the family." I turned to Alex. "You wanted the house? You got it. Good luck figuring it out." I turned on my heel and walked to the door, my heart pounding in my chest. "Jess, don't do this." My dad called after me. "We need you." I stopped at the doorway, turning back just enough to meet his eyes. "Yeah," I said, "and I needed you." Funny how that works. And with that, I walked out. I drove away without looking back, but the second I was alone in my car, I felt a wave of emotions crash over me: anger, frustration, maybe even a little sadness. Not because I regretted what I said, but because it confirmed something I had always suspected. I was never really part of their plans unless they needed something from me. After that, I went full no contact. Blocked their numbers, ignored their emails, and made it clear through mutual relatives that I was done. And you know what? It was the best decision I ever made. No more last-minute guilt trips. No more feeling like I was some disposable backup plan. From what I've heard, Alex is still struggling with the house. Turns out, property taxes and upkeep aren't as easy as having everything handed to you on a silver platter. My parents apparently tried to spin the story to make me look like the villain, but people caught on fast. Some of my extended family actually reached out to tell me they understood why I walked away. Honestly, I have no regrets. They made their choice, and I made mine. So, what do you think? Was I too harsh? Or did they finally just get a taste of their own medicine?